Debi Lane, innovative visionary entrepreneur, now philanthropist. And we're going to talk about business and how business is evolving, how Debi, your journey has evolved. And so let's start with that. For the years that you've been in business, how has your journey, could you just give us a description of how your relationship and your mindset about business has evolved?
Of course. First, thank you for inviting me to do this. It's always interesting when I go back and share my journey. We were talking earlier that, I think every time I tell it, I remember different things because I've had such a colorful background that it's not just like, oh, I had this life and then I went to school and then I went to college and then I studied business and then that's just absolutely not my journey. And so it's taken a lot of turns and twists and lots of failures and starts and just endings, and it just that's been more my journey. So like I said, every time I tell the story, it's I never know what I'm going to say. But my relationship to business, really is it's such a personal journey because I started it out of I started my entrepreneur journey, which is really my personal business journey, when I was really young, out of necessity, because I left school at a very young age. I left home at a very young age, between 14 and 15. And I didn't, get my GED until even later in life. But so it was almost, I wasn't really employable from a really early age, unless I made up a lot of fibs like I did when I went to work at the sink factory, which is a whole other story. But even those young, little jobs that I was able to get myself into, I just wasn't a good employee, because I always wanted to, no matter what it was, whether it was grinding down sinks or trying to make tacos at Taco Bell, I would go in there and look at the business and immediately try to make changes and talk about it. And I would see all these things that would be super cool if you did that would be like this. And I think that's what really got me excited. Like I said, it didn't matter what I was doing, I was excited about the actual part, the business aspect, not the taco or the Winchell's donuts or whatever it was. All my little jobs that lasted, usually a couple of months. But that kind of got my, my juices flowing. And I did, lots of little things like that until I was a little bit older. And when I was 18, it felt like, I'd already lived a life. But that's when I kind of got serious about wanting to start my first business. And I wanted to travel and see the world at the same time. I wanted to do both of those things. And I wanted to figure out a way to do, business and that. And back then I heard if you owned a travel agency that you could fly for free. So I'm like, well, there you go. That's what I want to do. And so I finally got my GED and went to travel school and got a job at my real first job. It was in the 80s, and it was at a travel agency, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I had big hair and huge shoulder pads, and I was able to smoke cigarettes which I don't smoke anymore, but I was able to sit there and smoke cigarettes and had this big old computer thing. And I mean, I just, I was playing the part, but I still got in there, and it was like, immediately telling the boss what he needed to do to be a better businessman. And I'd been there for 6 hours. So that was really, what I learned early on. I got fired from the job also. But what I noticed about myself early on was that I was also able to sell myself. And I was also able to articulate concepts very early on. Like, I know I'm telling you what you should do, but this is how you could do it. And, and I would have this story, and I was able to articulate that, which helped me to, throughout my whole life, build business plans and get them down on paper and actually turn them into something instead of these just like, daydreams. So that was one of my, innate gifts that was, handed down from who knows where, but I was able to sell myself, and I was able to articulate concepts. And so I was able to always get money from a very early age. I was able to, like with clients, I would be able to say, this is what I want to do. Or if I, somebody was a friend, whatever it was. And people would believe in what I wanted to do. And so from there, I started my first, travel business, and, that kind of evolved. Travel was my love for, a decade in various, different ways. I would learn different things, different aspects of the travel industry and I kept wanting to all kind of pull all these different interesting things that were interesting to me into a ball that wasn't really out there. And that's, again, kind of the theme. So that I follow, and still follow, I see something, I'm passionate about it, but I'm also selfish. It's like, I want to do all these things. Nobody's doing it. And I don't want anyone to tell me what to do. And I want to make a lot of money. Not too much to ask. And so I ended up just, doing that in travel. And then later in life, I did that my next business life was in recruiting, headhunting, so I did that in the .com, in the financial, and then I found beauty, and that's where it really kind of took off. And I, fell in love with beauty. It also, at that point in my life, everything, when I started getting into beauty, I also started finding myself. I started calming down. I started, practicing my mindfulness and really getting into more of a spiritual journey at the same time as I did beauty. And so that helped me to ground myself. But I think when that started, I still had this theme of, I just love beautiful things. I love beautiful things around me. I love beautiful things in the world. I like to see beautiful things. I like to experience. It's just beauty in everything. And so, when I was in travel, my last was in 5-star hotels. When I wanted to get into travel, I wanted to stay in 5-star hotels. When I started beauty, I wanted them to look like 5-star hotels. I'd seen the beauty industry at those kinds of places and wanted to pull that into it. And it was just like this, I wanted all my senses to come together in this land of beauty. And fast forward to my last hurrah before was LunchboxWax, and I was really able to pull all of those things together and so much more, which I'm sure we'll talk about into that last. But kind of that's how I found my way there.
Thank you. We will touch more on that. I want to ask you just a couple more questions about your journey around business. You said that you didn't last at jobs very long because you could always see, you saw how to run them. You saw how to improve them, when you did present ideas to people that you worked for, how did they receive those ideas?
Well, in the beginning, not great, because I was such a brat. I thought I knew everything. And so I wasn't very, I
diplomatic.
I'm definitely not diplomatic, but on top of it, I was offended that they wouldn't just stop everything and just do exactly what I said. But it was also, back then I didn't take enough time to really understand what was going on. So I was going in with this, like, this is, and I'm a, now I know I've always kind of been this creative branding kind of, that's more what I was trying to get at, but I never really got there. Back then it was more like, these are all the things you're doing wrong, and here's some better ideas. So, I mean, I think later in life, I was able to figure that out and be able to be more diplomatic when I was trying to share my ideas. But back then I was just a little brat.
Well, that's youthful exuberance, right?
But I was
And
also,
it's like, I see
17
what
years
to
old.
do. Yeah. I know what to do. And you, of course, you want to hear it, and that's
Yeah. But
like,
you know what? There were the people that, where I was working at the businesses, did not appreciate it. But the people, once I left there and went to start my own and was talking to people about my concept, whatever it might be, and I have had thousands, I swear, probably not thousands, but I've done so many different things. I've been, an entrepreneur my whole life. And so I've had, as most entrepreneurs my age will say, you have 100 failures. And I probably had 100 failures. But those people that, I talked to even at a very young age, 17, really understood what I was trying to say, because usually those people were more like-minded, and I was able to just kind of go all over the place and get excited and just say, and they would get excited and get it. And then they would say, just do it then. Whereas somebody that was trying to be an employer to an employee was just like, no, you need to do this. And I didn't understand. I needed to be a part of their business so he could do, or she could do, what she needed to do to run a business, which obviously I learned later in life.
so, how would you touched on you being an employee, how you didn't last typically very long as an employee. How would you categorize or describe yourself as an employee?
Awful. To this day, I would still say I'm unemployable.
Perfect. You're unemployable. So
I just am.
you kind of had to be an entrepreneur. You were destined to be an entrepreneur, would you say?
Without question, because I just can't, I just can't run someone else's course. I just can't. I have my own speed, and it's usually super fast. And I don't have a lot of fear when it comes to business, which is a blessing. And so I barrel through things, pretty quick. And if it's not working, then I'm all right, whatever, then I'll go over here. But when I go over here and I go over here, I go there, and I don't mind shifting direction very quickly. And, as an employee, you just can't do that. You have to, ask if you can help to shift the whole ship. And, as when working with me, there would be like these massive things. Let's go do this. And it would be 10 people involved, and I could see it wasn't going. And it's like, we're changing tomorrow, and everything would get scrapped and it would be over here. And so I think that's just in my DNA. And that just doesn't make for a good employee.
Back when we worked together, I usually knew if we had an idea on Thursday, Friday, it would have evolved by Monday. Right. I knew that there would be more to the story by Monday. You would have been noodling on it and perfecting it. And I always thought of you like Princess and the Pea. There would be that pea, and you were not going to rest until there was a discomfort, and until you could totally land that, in a solid way. Yeah, I knew things were going to continue to shift, and which, keeps employees on their toes. So let's talk about, so earlier before Lunchbox, you did different endeavors. And I think having employees before Lunchbox, like, did you have entrepreneurial ventures that you had employees or partners?
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah, and so
always.
what was your mindset about your employees, the people you worked with? Like
Yeah,
how did you approach your teams, like just as far as getting them on board with you, or what was your mindset about the people who worked with you and why did they want to work with you? Mm.
That's really interesting for me to think about, but because I started to have employees very early, when I started my first travel agency, and I think right out of the gate, I looked for people that fit my personality more than the job, right? And because I wanted people to play with, and I think that you can attest to this. I'm an outward processor. I need to have a lot of people that don't mind me talking a lot. because I do. And that's how I process, and I write, things on the sides of walls. And, I think to a lot of outside people, I would look like, a crazy person. But I think that's just, so I look for people that were a lot like me. And I often hired people without the skills that were like me, that I could mold and also, into what I needed them to do. And they were always ready to just do whatever. I was always very generous with what I would pay
Mhm.
people, because money was never why I did it. I was just really good at making money always. I knew how to monetize everything, and I just knew how to make money. I could see it, and so I was always generous with people, and I would share whatever I had. So that made it easy for me to find really loyal people. And that I took with me forever. Loyalty is is the it's the biggest part of building a team, and finding people that would just go do whatever. It's like, okay, we're just going to go 1,000 miles an hour with the top down, and here we go. Early on, my first hire was a gal named Wendy, and I'm still in touch with her.
Uh,
And she was the most loyal. She was hired as my assistant because I just wanted to say I had an assistant when I was 17. Um, but just became my everything, and was the person that was just my ride or die in business, but was there to just support absolutely everything I did. And she ended up being with me through, I don't even know, 2 or 3 different businesses. She just would, and then she'd go off and do a thing, I'd go out, and then when I'd start a new business, I'd say, "Hey, Wendy," and she's like, "Hell yeah, here I come." And she'd quit whatever she was doing. And so that was really, even in the businesses that sucked, I still had really good relationships and really good employees.
Fantastic. So I want to restate something I heard you say, and you said that it was more important that you hired people that you could really collaborate with, you could dig into the ideas and what you wanted to achieve, and that they didn't often come with the skill set for the job, but you could grow them in that. So did you see attributes that matched the role? Like, was there some sense of they could do this, or you're like,
Yes.
I can just groom them into being a good match for this role? Yeah. Can you describe that a little bit?
For sure. I mean, I've always hired people that had skills that I didn't. I knew that. In fact, I heard that from the first guy that gave me money. I still have I think he was one of my most important mentors in a lot of ways. And he's always like, get your ducks in a row and always have your ducks in a row. I mean, it was like on every call, are your ducks in a row? How's your ducks doing? He was the one that kind of helped me understand, first of all, that I didn't know everything, because he was so blunt with me. He's like, you don't know shit, Debi. If you come over here and you keep thinking you know everything and you know nothing. He was this guy. It was, oh my gosh, he was very, very, very wealthy textile guy. He lived on Roxbury Drive in Beverly Hills and picked me up in a Bentley. And, I just thought that like I had made it. And, but he was a client. And I would always, daydream. We just we had this really good relationship right off the bat. And he was the kind of businessman that I wanted to be, goofy, super rich, just like, everybody liked him, and he just didn't, really give 2 cents what anyone said. He just was this super cool guy, and he took a shine to me, and wanted to mentor me. And he was, this older guy. He was probably in his late 50s back then, and I was 17.
Oh, wow.
But it was he's like, get your ducks in a row and then I'll fly you over here. And that, so I flew over there and gave him my first little business plan, and we talked about all those things, like, here, you have employees, you have the, that you're going to hire this person for this person for that. And we went through all of those kind of things where, where to your point, hire things you don't have, hire, like Wendy, for instance, she could type. I couldn't type, nor did I ever want to type. She knew how to do a little bit of bookkeeping. So, I always brought people in that had something that I wanted to learn from them.
There's a lot of energy when you describe the things that you created and wanted to create, and generating excitement and ideas. And you said people would want to give you money. You could really know how to present yourself and your ideas. By the way, side note, it sounds like this high roller guy, this man, he believed in you. He saw something in you, even though he'd say, you don't know shit, Debi. He saw something in you that he was willing to mentor and work with you and invest in you. And yeah, what do you think he saw in you?
I think that he saw I think he saw a little visionary in the making. I do. Because he always, when I would start to get into, what I was thinking about, he would just get quiet and just sit there, and like, we'd be at lunch and he would just be like, it was almost like I was telling a story and he was just this little listener of the story. And he would always just kind of get quiet after and just smile, and just, he appreciated that I didn't really put any boundaries around what I wanted. I would say things like, I used to think, being naive, well, I was naive for sure, but I never thought, even, here I was, I didn't have anything. I bought this suit to go meet him. But I mean, I had no money, I had nothing. I just had this idea and that I wanted to do. And when I presented it like, it was the next, IBM. And because my dreams were so massive, and I actually believed that I could do it, because I used to, it was, I remember when I was he had his driver pick me up, and we were driving through, the first time I was driving through, and I was on Wilshire Boulevard, and I would see these big, huge buildings. I'm like, well, somebody built that. Like a person, somebody had an idea and they did that. So I could do that. Like that was a person. It wasn't just like out of nowhere. So I always never put any limits on my dreams, and he loved that. And he let me talk about things in that big, and then later in life, that's gone through, that's every time I think of anything. When I started Lunchbox, it was the same sort of thing. It was like, well, yeah, I know I'm just me waxing, 10 vaginas in one day in a little room by myself. But, there's this other company out here that has 500 sons. I can do that too. I could actually probably have 600. And, and I would just write my little business plan on that. And when I wrote the business plan for that, it was a little tiny business plan, just kind of like my first one. It was, I don't know, 4 or 5 pages. And I got my first little money for that. And it's just, anybody that gave me money or did that were people that listened to me and were so like, they believed that, and probably were entertained by the fact that I thought I could literally do anything.
So tell me about, you were a horrible employee, to quote you. And so why did people want to work with you when you got employees? What drew them to you? Did they stick around, and why? What did you create? Talk about your relationship with your employees.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So that started early on, when I had my first business, the travel business. And I think, for me, when I was looking for people to bring in, I never really looked for a skill set. I never said, I need, somebody that can type, or I need somebody that can do this. I mean, I needed and always looked for people that had, skills that I didn't have. But I think in general, what I wanted is people that I could collaborate with, that I could sit down and would just listen to the ideas, and we could throw them on the table. And number one, that they would just let me, go. I needed to outwardly process what was going on in my mind, because even though I started, I'd open the door with this idea, it changed all the time. I mean, every business I've ever had was like, it evolved, it was a never ending evolution of whatever I was doing, because I would just never be able to kind of stop thinking about it. So I needed people that were like-minded like that, and had skills that I didn't have, which I learned early on. Always hire people that have skills that you don't, and know when to let them do those skills. Don't try to do everything. But really, it was more people that also wanted to learn new things and be new things and be mentored. And yes, I was hired to be Debi's assistant and to do filing and all these other sorts of things, but she also wants me to learn about telemarketing back then. You know what I mean? And I'm okay with getting on the phone and doing this or whatever. So it was always needing and wanting people around me that I could kind of play with.
Did people stretch themselves? Did they want to do a good job for you, would you say?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think that I was never the typical boss. I think I learned from all of the bosses, the little stints that I had with bosses, that I never, I wanted to be part of the team. I wanted to be down in the dirt with them. And, you know, I think with my first business, I just had to have an assistant and an office. It was just like, I was so important when I was 17. But after that, I really realized that, you know, that we all hung out in there, and then we all started hanging out over here. And I was never, I was never the person that felt, I mean, always, even to today, never, never wanted to, after a very, short period of time in the beginning when I thought that was the coolest thing ever, to be the boss. After that, it didn't feel right. It felt, I really felt like I wanted to be part of the team, even though I was leading them. And that, I think, made them want to do well. They respected that. I also knew how to bring people in, and have conversations in the beginning and just say, this is who I am. I'm going to do this. This is this is my interviews would, I'd swear in them back then, or, it was just me. And it's like, so this is me. Do you want to come hang out and try to do this with me? Or, I can't guarantee anything, but while you're here, it's going to be awesome. And, there were people that were just like, no.
You're freaking me out.
You're freaking me out. And I'd have a few come in, and they would just get kind of spun out very quickly. But the ones that got it would be they would be almost like as excited about they would be as excited about whatever it was that was happening as I was. And they were also very excited to know and feel that whatever they said, and their ideas were never going to be weird. They were never going to be they were always going to be heard. And we would sit and look at so it was a team thing. And I think I carried that forever also.
It sounds to me like you are a creator. You know how to create things. You live in a world of ideas, and what you create, you also see how to build it out and keep evolving it. And you need people that can understand that, translate that, roll with that, also be somewhat independent. I think it sounds like you're the opposite of a micromanager in a way. Like you want to collaborate, but then you let people, you said you let people do what they do. Well,
yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, where did you pick that up, or have you just always kind of known that?
No, I've always known that. I've always known, because I've always liked watching people do their thing. It was always super cool to watch whoever, I've always kind of, as the businesses would go, whatever they were, I would, here's the concept, and here I am, and these are all the things that need to get done. So I would, this over here. Okay. So Wendy's doing that, then I would move on, and I'd go, okay, this has to happen. So then I'd bring somebody in, and I'd go doing that, and go over here and talk to her and link up. Okay. And then I keep going. I'd be like, okay, I need this now. Lunchbox was such a huge, I needed those skills that I learned my whole life for that. I mean, building a franchise system, is the biggest, most complicated thing I think that you can do in business. It's not just like have a business, have some employees, hope that, clients come in and off you go. And so in all of the years, it was like that. It's like, here, you tie yourself to you guys do your thing. And then, if you need somebody else, we'll tie that person in, and I'll go do this, and then I'll build this area. And then, okay, you go over there and tie yourself in with those people. And then you guys keep doing, you know what I mean? And so I would watch that evolve as I was evolving. It was so cool to always just watch teams. And, again, going back to, building the franchise system, and not knowing anything about it. first you're doing, just the business itself of, waxing, and then hiring employees. And then you start to have to build out, how are you going to duplicate this? Well, it's not just like, oh, let's just open another one. It's like, okay, well, now we have to figure out how to get products, and then you have to figure out how to distribute them. And then you have to, and so those chains, it kept going. And so again, you're just, I just building things, plopping people in it, learning something new, building it, plopping, construction and products and sales, and and then you're trying to keep it all together and to one thing that actually can be marketed. And then there's technology, and then you add in a whole nother layer of business owners. So then you're having to tie them in and their employees. And so it's constantly knitting. It's like I'm the knitter, and I have the big picture of what I'm knitting, but I have to stay up here and oversee and go, oh, pull that thing back in and knit that in, and cut that tie, and do, without having people that, number one, were also visionaries, because everybody that worked for me was, in their own way, especially at Lunchbox. But even back when I had other businesses, they were ideas people. And without just a team of full-blown idea, nobody was just a worker. Nobody, not an assistant, not anybody was just doing one thing. They were all ideas people. And those, as people were brought into that, I had to see how not only would they tie in with me and their job, but how are they going to tie into all these other layers, so that I could just go have fun. Hey, let me know how it's going later, So I know that's a long-winded answer, but it's really, it's really the evolution of, how I started very early on, understanding that ideas people were my people.
I'm running into a new term out in business development, people development, called business should be networks. Like the departments would be more of a network approach, like you have your own network in your own department, maybe it's operations, but then there are times you need to go over and network with HR, culture people, finance, marketing, and it sounds like that's how you knew to do it.
Oh, I don't. Yeah. I mean, it's weird that that's even something new. I don't know how, I wouldn't know
a way to look at it,
Yeah.
and you knew who need to plug in across those departmental silos. You knew who need to plug in with whom, when.
And it was more that I knew I needed to plug them in, and I needed to trust them enough to not only just do what needed to be done, right? But to be over here evolving, not just, the doer. And when that person's evolving, giving them the freedom to go evolve over with this person without having to involve me. And then, yes, knowing that everybody's doing this. And, it's weird because I was always able to, no matter what, like something would be tugged over here, and I wouldn't even be in the loop, but I would know that it was being tugged the wrong way because the hole was being jacked a little bit. Does that make sense?
You could sense that when things weren't right?
I could sense something that I was not even, a part of, because if it was going sideways, because everybody was so interconnected that I could feel the tug, and I would be like, something like the water's boiling over there. I can feel it over here and I need to go see, and I would just, I would go over, and sure enough, there would be something that was going sideways. It was like a big web, right? So if this is just getting moved around, or someone's being siloed, or, they're deciding they know more and they're like going to go do their own thing. Well, because of the way it was knit together, the whole web would start to like, tweak a little bit, and I would know that it was off. So I think that having that, having that networking obviously is, it's crucial, but I think, what you said earlier, I mean, I can't imagine being in an organization where that kind of micromanagement goes on. And I've seen it. First of all, it would be so exhausting. I mean, I don't know how you could even keep up with that. But also, I mean, I also know that, yes, I'm creative, but I'm also out there, and I had to be reined in on a daily basis, because I have so many ideas all the time. It never stops. When I get into something, like, it's like popcorn. I mean, it's trying to, trying to just keep it. I try to contain myself. Sometimes I can. And then having people that can call me and go, "Oh, seriously, Debbie? Yeah, no, we're not doing that." Or, okay, we'll try it. But, like I said, it's a room full of visionaries. It's that is really important. And then that those visionaries and ideas people trusted me. I mean, that's the biggest thing. That everybody, I can say, especially when it got to Lunchbox, at every level, all the way down, to the, I think the 300, waxologists that we had over the course of the time that we had that, trusted me. I think that, and that's because I really felt the, the connection and the camaraderie with everybody as equals, in our ideas and so forth. So
Thank you.